So, just when I thought West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin couldn't get any more pathetic than he already is, he managed to surprise me yet again because now he's considering going full MAGA in 2020, saying, quote, "I'm open to supporting the person who I think is best for my country and my state." And additionally, to make matters worse, he hasn't ruled out publicly endorsing Donald Trump in 2020. So, in other words, in order to stop a Republican from getting his seat, he's willing to go full Republican in the process. So either way, a Republican is getting that seat, Joe. Do you not see the problem? But I mean, he doesn't necessarily care if a Democrat or Republican holds that seat. What he cares about is that his ass occupies that seat. Now, when something like this happens, when a member of your party goes rogue, if you are in leadership, if you're Chuck Schumer, his boss, there are things you can do to rein rogue members of the party back in. You can withhold funding from him for his election. You can remove him from committee appointments. You can do things and exercise authority to make sure that he doesn't do things that make the party look horrible. So how is Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, choosing to penalize Joe Manchin, you ask? Well, in an interview with Chris Cuomo on CNN, he pretty much said he's not.
Joe Manchin, Senator of West Virginia, says he's open to backing Trump in 2020. When does he get a phone call from the Senate Democratic leader?
Our senators are wonderful people. We have great unity in our caucus. And one of the reasons we do is I let people come to their own decisions. I'll tell them what I think, but there's no arm twisting. There's no you'll lose your committee. I won't put bills on the floor. I've had to do none of that. And people come together. Joe Manchin is a guy who likes to talk to everybody and listen to them. And almost inevitably, he does what's right for West Virginia.
I might back Trump in 2020. Never heard a sitting Democrat or Republican say that about a president from the out party.
I have faith Joe Manchin will come to the right decision for West Virginia. He almost always has. People never thought, he was one of our strongest people on health care. Why? Because the people of West Virginia so desperately need health care.
Is this a reflection of the weakness of the Democratic Party in states like West Virginia?
We've stayed totally united. We are doing so much better than people think. There's a public poll that showed Manchin up 13 points over his opponent.
Why would he say something like this?
Joe Manchin always keeps his options open to do what's best for West Virginia. I have confidence he'll do the right thing.
So that, to me, has got to be one of the most embarrassing interviews Chuck Schumer has ever given. How can you say those words and not hide your face afterwards and be completely ashamed of yourself? He said, "We have great unity in our caucus, and one of the things I do is let people come to their own decisions." Well, clearly you don't have great unity, Chuck, if one of your own members is thinking about endorsing the other party's president. So obviously you don't have unity, and one of the things you can do to try to at least make rogue members of the party acquiesce under your leadership is you can use multiple tools at your disposal. Again, you can remove him from committees. You can try to withhold funding from him. But you're choosing to not do that. And that's not leadership, Chuck. That's just chaos and anarchy. And Joe Manchin is making the party look worse than it already looks. And he's bringing all of you down. And you're not choosing to do anything about it. You're choosing to let him go rogue. And if you're too much of a coward and lack the courage needed to be in a leadership position, then you need to resign. You don't have to step down from Congress or from the Senate, but you certainly shouldn't be in a leadership position if you have zero courage whatsoever. If you lack a spine to stand up to someone in your own party, how are we going to expect you to stand up to the opposing party? We can't. Now, he states almost inevitably Joe Manchin is a guy who does what's right for West Virginia. But that implies Joe Manchin is representing his constituents in West Virginia when the opposite is true. Just to give you one example, when all 55 counties in West Virginia voted for Bernie Sanders in 2016, he still voted for Hillary Clinton. He used his vote as a superdelegate to support Hillary Clinton, completely ignoring the will of every district in his state. Does that sound like someone who is standing up for what's right for West Virginia? Furthermore, Chuck Schumer is tacitly admitting that supporting Trump might be the right thing for West Virginians. If you're saying Joe Manchin almost inevitably does what's right for West Virginians, then you're basically admitting that going Trump is the best thing for West Virginians, Chuck. Do you not realize how foolish you sound? You are emboldening Republicans. If members of the party you lead are siding with the opposite party, that makes you look horrible. It makes the whole party look terrible. But don't worry, because Chuck Schumer says that he has faith in Joe Manchin that he'll do the right thing. Yeah, he'll do the right thing for his corporate donors. That's exactly what he's going to do. Now, if you're wondering why Chuck Schumer doesn't seem outraged at the fact that someone from his own party, who he presides over, might flip and go full MAGA in 2020, well, it's because Chuck Schumer himself kind of wants to work with Republicans. In fact, this is what he said specifically if Democrats take back the Senate.
If we get in the majority, we'll see. If we get in the majority, we'll have Republicans working with us far more than when they were in power, having us work with them.
But doesn't that mean that they are more fair and interested in bipartisanship than you?
It means we're going to reach out. They rejected us. As I mentioned to you, on the major issues, they do what's called reconciliation.
Right.
We don't want or need Democratic votes. Had they included us in health care, had they included us in the tax bill, it would have been a far better bill for the middle class, and they would have been better off. That's why they're suffering now.
I am utterly flabbergasted by Chuck Schumer. He has to be the most feckless leader in the Democratic Party's history. I mean, Republicans have all but ripped off his neck and shit down his throat. And he's still saying that at the first opportunity he has, he's going to reach out. He's going to try to hold hands with them and sing Kumbaya. So after this party, after Republicans obstructed everything Obama did over the last 8 years, they literally blocked and ultimately stole a vacant Supreme Court seat. They blocked Democrats from participating in discussions related to tax reform and healthcare, and did everything in their power to spit in the faces of Democrats like Chuck Schumer. What does he say? Oh, well, I still want to reach out and work with them. I mean, you're just a joke. I honestly am speechless at this. I don't know what to say. How embarrassing for Chuck Schumer. And he thinks that he's being the grown-up by reaching out to Republicans. They don't want to be friends with you, Chuck. They don't give a fuck about your Democrats. They are ruthless, they are relentless, and they will do everything in their power to crush you. And the fact that you don't have a spine and you're unwilling to stand up to them, you are emboldening them. Chuck Schumer has got to be a fucking masochist. What is it going to take to get him and other like-minded Democrats to actually stand up to Republicans and fight fire with fire for once? I mean, they already caved on DACA. They totally stopped fighting for Dreamers. They're letting Trump get away with one of the biggest scandals in decades by ignoring thousands of people he let die in Puerto Rico. And now they're letting their own fucking party slide to the right by actually endorsing one of the most morally bankrupt and corrupt administrations ever. I mean, this is exactly why Republicans have become so extremist and right-wing. When you compare them to other conservative parties around the world and in Europe, they're way further to the right. They're more similar to fringe right-wing extremist parties in Europe than they are to other conservative parties, and that's because they face no real opposition. The Democratic Party has absolutely no idea how to resist. Part of the reason why Erdogan has been so efficient at consolidating power in Turkey is because the main opposition party in that country, CHP, is completely toothless. And in the United States, we're seeing the same type of consequence as a result of the opposition party's spinelessness. And Republicans, which are currently a minority party that's only supported by a quarter of the population, control everything. And they will shape policy, if not entirely control policy in this country for years to come because of how weak and spineless Democrats like Chuck Schumer are. If they spent half as much energy resisting Republicans as fiercely as they resist progressives in their own party, the country might actually be in a lot better shape than it is currently. But instead, they're so far gone that when their own members openly flirt with the idea of endorsing Donald fucking Trump in 2020, they don't reprimand him at all. And it's because they want to work with and appease Republicans themselves. I mean, at a time when Republicans are as duplicitous and ruthless as they've ever been, They should be adopting a bold populist agenda in order to force Republicans to move back towards the center and support some of the policies that are overwhelmingly supported by Americans. But instead, what do? They just let Republicans monopolize political discourse in this country. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Chuck Schumer is a complete embarrassment, and if he had any dignity or sense of care for the country left, he would resign, because Democrats need a leader who actually has a spine. Chuck Schumer doesn't have that. If you can't stand up to people in your own party, you can't stand up to Republicans. And as a result, they are ruining the country because of your feckless leadership. So you need to resign, Chuck, because clearly you don't know what you're doing, or you don't want to do the right thing, and you don't have the courage to stand up to people in your own party who are clearly making you all look bad.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.